Welcome back to Let's Play Dawn of the Zeds. Where we last left off, we did a little introduction to the game. We got the boards set up, introduced myself, went over a little bit of what the goal for this video series is all about, and now we are back into the game, into turn number 2. We had Pickles the dog, who was an absolute monster out at the farm. So now we're moving on to turn 2. First thing we need to do is to draw our next event card. And our event card is Research Materials. I'm regretting a little bit not having anyone in our initial heroes list who has anything to do with research. We follow the event card from top to bottom. The first is RRR Movement. And since we don't have any raiders, refugees, or raiders on the board, we don't have to worry about that for this turn. Moving on to Outbreak. An outbreak will occur if our infection level is 5 or higher. We are still running a very clean and orderly, tidy ship. Everyone is still washing their hands. No outbreak is going to occur. Moving on to Consume Supplies. And here we simply get a no, which is what we want to see. So we are not forced to consume any of our precious supplies to feed all of our civilian armies that are located here around the map. To the Zeds phase. The Zeds are going to move on the forest track as indicated by the little interstate sign. Now we only have one Zed on the forest track. If we had multiple Zeds on the track, we would start with the one that is closest to town center and work our way backward. Since there's only one, it's relatively easy. This 7-strength Zed, which is a pretty nasty group of zombies, is going to approach the town of St. Thomas. And that's all we need to do for the Zeds phase. Not too painful. Things are still relatively under control. Moving on to the actions phase. They are generously giving us 3 actions this time. And the event occurs in the action phase, so we'll take a look at that now. If a friendly unit ends the action space in the nuclear plant space, increase the research level by 1. So our nuclear plant is down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4 spaces away. All of our heroes can move 4 spaces, with the exception of Pickles. Since he is a speedy little dog, he can actually move 5. And our civilian armies can move 2. Now, just as a reminder, these civilian armies that are tipped upside down, they still think staying in their hometowns is a great idea. They're soon going to learn that it's not, but they cannot move. When they can move 2 spaces. And again, every unit, whether it's a civilian unit, our specialty little security guards, or our heroes, can only move once per turn. So we can pretty easily get someone down to the nuclear plant by the end of our action phase. We got 3 actions to do it, get some free research. That's what I like to see. If you recall, Sheriff Hunt here has his leadership ability where once per action phase, he can forcibly make a civilian unit take a free action. And I like to use those free actions, at least for right now, for foraging. Foraging is important. It gives us a free one that we can do every turn. So the first thing I'm going to do is have Sheriff Hunt coerce our civilians to search the town center, see if we can come up with some supplies. And again, we can roll, in this case, the civilians are searching, so we're only going to get to roll 1 die. Remember, there was only Pickles that got to roll 2 die. But we do have Mr. Mayor Hernandez. His ability of keys to the city. He's going to allow all of our forage rolls to be at a +1. So, civilians get a 1, which, as I recall, is what they got last time they tried. So, no supplies were obtained by our civilians. Big shocker. We have 3 actions remaining. The most dangerous parts of the board right now, we've got a strength 7 zombie that is 2 steps away here from St. Thomas. We've got a strength 5 zombie that is 2 steps away from Lefty's Pass over there in the mountains. Now, normally zombies only move 1 space, but there are certain cards that allow them to move 2 spaces. So you always have to be a little wary that they can somehow jump and move 2 spaces away. For my first action, I think I'm going to get Pickles out of the farm. Let's get him back to the town center so that we can continue to use his foraging to hopefully get us some more ammo. Town is only 3 away. Pickles is going to move into the town center. Now, I think it's still a little too early for me to commit, say, for example, Sheriff Hunt to either the forest or the mountains to try to help these villages defend themselves, because I just don't know which one is going to advance first. So I think I'm just going to have him hang out in the town center. That's going to let him boss around the civilians again next turn. Colonel Kingman, he's also got some great offensive abilities as well, so he can go out and help defend. But again, I think things are just a little too early. So we're going to just hang on with them. All right, with my second turn, I am going to send Pickles out into the wilds of the town center, looking for more ammunition. Let's see how he does. Pickles gets 2 dice. He gets the +1 from our good mare. And he gets highest roll. He will get a 5. Consulting our forage table, a 5 is going to give us a supply, moving us up to 16 supplies. Good boy, Pickles. Now, for our final action, we need to send someone down to the nuclear plant to make sure that we get that free research level. And I believe I'm going to send Colonel Kingman. So Colonel Kingman can move 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. He is now down into the nuclear plant, and we are at the end of our actions phase. We do have a friendly unit in the nuclear plant, so we increase our research level by 1. Now, we haven't talked too much about what is the purpose of research. Research does a couple of things. First, the more research levels you get, the easier it is for you to heal. Healing is still pretty difficult. For starters, we don't have a doctor or anyone that can actually go to the hospital to heal our units. But the more research level you have, the easier healing that it is. The second thing research does, and is probably the most important thing, is it allows you to develop the super weapon. The super weapon is a great late game item. It lets you, with ranged attacks, knock zombies back a space, which becomes really important in being able to keep them out of your town center. Fortunately, we don't have any scientists, so we got a little bit of free research here at the nuclear plant, but until we get a scientist through some event of the game, we're going to struggle to get our research up. And then the last thing that research allows you to do is to develop the antidote, which is a multi-step process. You need to find a final component, and you need to finally develop the antidote, but that is the ultimate win condition of the game, is to survive and to develop the zombie antidote. Turn number 3. Our event card is Wandering Zeds. Starting off with an RRR movement. Again, we have no raiders, rangers, or refugees, so we can move on to an outbreak. Our outbreak is still at a very sanitary 0. We will not have an outbreak this turn. We do not need to consume supplies. And the Zeds phase wants us to do an event, as well as activate the Zeds on the highway track and the tunnels track. So we'll get to see some action down in the tunnels for the first time. So let's check out the event. At the beginning of the Zeds phase, make a fate draw. Select one non-start space on that track occupied by a player unit to conduct an immediate Zeds attack on the equal to column of the combat table with normal shifts and infection effects. Your units suffer losses only and do not retreat. So a lot of new things for us here on this event, and let's take them one by one. So first, we are at the beginning of the Zeds phase, so we need to make a fate card draw. We draw a card off the fate deck, and we get Grim Determination at Last Stand. Now, the only thing we need to worry about from this fate card at first is the very top where it says where. That's going to indicate to us where the event is taking place. So it says the suburbs. Now it wants us to select one non-start space on that track, the suburbs, occupied by a player unit, and conduct an immediate Zeds attack on the equal to column of the combat table. So we need to pick between one of these two poor Zeds. Now, in my experience, which is again very limited, but this civilian tends to kind of be out here in the middle of nowhere. He's got zombies that can reach him through here, but a lot of zombies sneak through these tunnels and end up getting by him. So, and plus he's the weaker of the two. I'm going to choose this guy. So now what it wants us to do is an immediate Zeds attack on the equal to column of the combat table with normal shifts and infection of effects. Your units suffer losses only and do not retreat. All right, so I just thought of something to jazz up this board a little bit. We'll add a little 3 dimensions to the board to better help keep track of where our zombies are at. So the card wants us to do an immediate zombie attack at our civilians here at East Irick. And now for the very first time, we're going to take a look at combat. So it wants us to do a Zeds attack on the equal to column of the combat table with normal shifts and infection effects. So first is infection. Since we're doing hand-to-hand combat, a zombie and a player unit, such as a civilian or a hero, is in face-to-face combat. So we need to increase our infection level from 0 to 1. That's the first thing. The second thing is normally we would compare the strengths of the zombies and the civilians to determine where on the combat table we're going to roll. In this case, it just says it wants us to do it on the equal to column. So this would be assuming that the civilians and the zombies are of the same strength. And then it wants us to apply normal shifts. Now, these are bonuses that you get in combat, either for defensive or offensive. We get a bonus because we are in a village space, and that allows us to shift one to the left on the column. So we're going to be rolling on the less than column. And the zombies roll an 8. Now, if we look at the less than column for an 8, that says that the attacker is going to take 2 damage and the defender is going to take 2 damage. And normally, the red number would also indicate that the attacker would retreat in this instance. But since the card says that your units suffer losses only and do not retreat, our poor civilians are going to take 2 hits. Now, the first thing it does is it activates them. They have now come to realize that the zombie threat is real. The first hit puts a casualty on the civilian. The second hit will flip the civilian onto its wounded side, and the casualty marker would come off. So first damage put a casualty marker on, the second one flipped it. The third damage would put a casualty marker on that side, and the fourth damage would kill it. So civilians are able to take 4 wounds before they're destroyed. Since this was a temporary zombie, he goes away. These civilians have been woken up. Villagers, they still kind of think that things might be okay. So now that we've resolved the text of our event card, we still need to go back and finish off this fate card. So this fate card is Grim Determination at Last Stand. It says, hold this card. Play after the resolution of any one combat when your unit is defending. Apply all hits from the combat normally, then in order. Inflict 1 additional hit on the Zeds unit. Retreat the Zeds unit. Your unit does not retreat. These effects are applied regardless of the normal retreat requirements of the original result. So basically, this is a card we hold on to. We get to use at a later time. It'll likely come in handy. We finished up the black box around the Zeds phase, and now we need to actually activate the zombies. So first we activate the zombies in the highway track, and they're going to shamble their way up to the 6 space. We activate the zombies in the tunnel track, and they are going to move from the start space and over into the Chromotechnics laboratory. And again, this is a Strength 9 zombie, which is one of the strongest normal zombies in the game. We're going to experience super zombies, super Zeds, but as far as the plain Jane zombies go, these guys are bad news. So we've activated all of our zombies, and now this event is going to give us 2 actions. As a free action, Sheriff Hunt, he is going to berate the civilians in the town center, and get them out looking for either supplies or ammunition. Rolling 1 dice with Mayor Hernandez is +1. And the civilians for the 3rd time roll 1. Now for my 2 regular actions. As we can see, these zombies are only 1 space away from Inkberg. That village is going to be under attack by a pretty meaty 6 strength zombie here in a short period of time. I do have Colonel Kingman relatively close. Let's take a look at Colonel Kingman's card for just a moment. Potentially interesting to us is Fortify Strongpoint, which is basically a super barrier. And we haven't built any barriers yet, but we probably will likely, and he's able to build a really strong type of barrier. The next thing, Colonel Kingman can lay down some mines. I don't think that's going to be super helpful for us right now. But what we really want to look at is the defensive parameter ability. What this basically allows us to do is if we park the Colonel right here in number 4, if this zombie were to enter into the 5th space there, we would at least have a 50-50% chance that that zombie's move would be canceled and his attack would be wasted. So I think that's pretty powerful. That is one option. And the other rule to note is that no 2 player units can be in the same space. So we can't have 2 heroes in the same space. I can't have a civilian and a hero in the same space. We all have to be spread out and individual from each other. I do think moving Colonel Kingman into the 4 spot, potentially delaying that zombie from entering, might be our best play with one of our actions. And then we will use our final action to, say it with me, forage with pickles. Pickles rolled a 3. He gets a +1 from the mayor. And hey, that's going to find us a supply, putting us up to a whopping 17 supplies. We should probably start to use some of those supplies and build some barricades. Those are our 2 actions. That ends turn number 3. Got to see a little bit of combat, got to see a little action, got to see a little pickle scrounging. All in all, not too bad of a turn.